ES Audio.
From the Evening Standard in London, I'm John Weeks, and this is The Leader. Before we start, let me tell you about a big live event for business that the Evening Standard is putting on next month. Our SME Expo features speakers like Vitabiotics CEO and former Dragon in the Den, Tej Lalvani, Not on the High Street and Holly & Co founder Holly Tucker, and Allbright co-founder Debbie Wasco. There's lots more across 2 days at the conference and exhibition being held at the Olympia in London on the 23rd and 24th of February. And it's free. Get tickets and see the full lineup at smeexpo.co.uk. Now, this is The Leader. MPs and business leaders have piled more pressure on Boris Johnson to end Plan B and the work from home advice. Some have warned of catastrophic long-term damage to some London districts as a result of 2 years of COVID lockdowns, trading restrictions, and guidance not to commute to the office. Government officials are due to review the Plan B guidelines on the 26th, with Chairman of the Conservatives Oliver Dowden hinting yesterday that the restrictions could be lifted at the end of the month. Jonathan Prynn, the Evening Standard's Associate Editor, joins me now. So Jonathan, what are business groups calling for?
Well, a lot of them want the work from home advice to be dropped immediately rather than wait till the Plan B regulations are reviewed on the 26th of January, which is the scheduled date. They're saying that their Christmas trading was completely ruined by the introduction of Plan B in December after the Omicron variant really started to take hold. And they're saying that January is looking really, really bleak for central London businesses. And they really want that working from home advice to be dropped, if not immediately, then certainly in the next few days, and certainly no later than January the 26th, so they can start getting people back into central London again.
So they say businesses are struggling more now than last year, for example, when lockdowns were in place. Why is that?
The reason they're saying that is that when the full lockdowns were implemented in 2020 and 2021, the government quite rightly put in an enormous and unprecedented range of support measures that we now all know about very well. The furlough scheme in particular and the loan scheme to save businesses from the worst of the impact of the lockdown. What they're telling me now is that, okay, it's not quite a full lockdown, but for central London, the city in particular, it's not far off in terms of the amount of business that they're seeing. But none of the support infrastructure is there anymore. It's all been taken away. It was all phased out last autumn mainly. So they are suffering through a government decision that, they understand the government decision, but they feel very, very bruised and angry that they've been left to suffer and lose millions and millions of pounds worth of trade without any help from the government through no fault of their own.
So aside from small businesses like shops and restaurants, public transport's taken quite a hit as well, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I mean, ridership on the tubes is only about half what it was pre-pandemic. Even now, it was beginning to creep up towards sort of 60, 70% before this work from home order came in, but it's fallen right back. Buses is a bit higher, probably about 70, 75%. But what the area of public transport is taking the biggest hit are the overground mainline commuter services coming in from the suburbs and the home counties. You normally would be bringing in hundreds of thousands of workers into the city and the West End and elsewhere in central London. That at the moment is only at about 25% of normal. So that has huge implications for the rail industry. How much of that will come back once Plan B measures are lifted, no one knows, but I think it's unlikely it's going to go back to 100% of what it was before for a very long time, if ever.
So do we know how long businesses in London can last with Plan B in place?
I think the feeling is that if there isn't a swift recovery in business kind of before the spring, then it's going to be terminal for a lot of companies, because in the spring, all sorts of new costs are coming in. There's higher national insurance payments. Energy bills, we know, are going up. All sorts of costs are due to increase in the spring. VAT on hospitality goes back to its pre-pandemic rate, having been reduced to 5% for a long period to help hospitality. So there's a kind of lot of what businesses call headwinds facing them from sort of March, April onwards. So I think for them, and if there isn't a really strong recovery and upturn in business by that sort of time, you're going to be looking at a mass extinction event for businesses across the West End and the city, those sectors that are most exposed.
So officials are going to review the data on the 26th, Wednesday next week. Are we expecting Plan B to be lifted then?
I think what people are saying is that the work from home order and the vaccine passports regulations that require people attending nightclubs and major events such as football matches and so on to show their vaccination status, I think it's almost certain that those two measures will be lifted. That's been well flagged really in the papers over the weekend and today. I think the third measure, the requirement to wear face masks on public transport and in shops, for example, I suspect that may have a little bit further to run, and we may see that continuing for another few months. I mean, who knows? But that would be my hunch, that it will be kind of 2 out of 3 that we'll see being lifted.
So it does appear we're over the worst of Omicron. Do you think we'll see the end of restrictions like working from home after the end of this month?
You know, I'm no scientist, but I mean, I would say that the noises that I'm picking up from the scientific community and the politicians is as optimistic as I've heard it for probably throughout the pandemic. I think there is a genuine glimmer of hope that with the vaccination rollout and Omicron being a very different type of variant, I suppose, with a much milder effects but much more infectious, that we genuinely, barring another mutation that brings fresh problems, I think there is a feeling that we may well be past the worst now, and that with the warmer weather coming, which always has a effect reducing case rates, and with the health service apparently not quite as stretched as in the previous winters and the previous peaks, we may be looking at a situation where life returns to, 95% normal. Maybe we'll not get 100% for quite a long time yet, but very, very close to normal within a few months. I think that's what businesses are hoping for, and let's hope that's what we get.
There's more on this story in the Evening Standard newspaper and at standard.co.uk. That's The Leader. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m.